Good morning, I'm Terence Hallmark. I'm the Business Development Manager at UKTelehealthcare. Thank you for joining today's UKTelehealthcare October Digital Marketplace. As you can see the programme, hopefully on your screen now, we have 6 presentations for you. The first presentation will be kicked off by Wayne O'Donnell, and Wayne will be talking about Doro Eliza, its next generation social alarm. That will be followed by Max Stevens from CSL, who will discuss solutions for telecare. Then we'll have Emma Quest and Rebecca Howe, and they will talk about NRS, improving lives, saving councils money by finding the right solution. Steve Gates will then present for PPP Taking Care, and will cover enhancing customer choice, the challenges and opportunities. Then we have one of our newest members, YR Home, and Stuart Barkley from YR Home will be presenting on introducing actually his products and services. And finally, George McDowell and Natasha Salway from Oyster will talk about innovation and outcome. I think you're all familiar now with using the chat facility. When you do use that to ask any questions of the presenters, please could you post your questions to both our participants and the attendees. This will enable everybody to follow the conversation during today's event. The chat file will be downloaded after this event, and any questions unanswered will be covered by those presenters at a later stage. There will be a full recording of today's event on the UK Telehealthcare website. And to share today's event, please use the @UK Telehealthcare News and the hashtags. There will be a final roundup at the end of this event by Jerry Allmark, Managing Director of UK Telehealthcare. And that should finish then about 1 o'clock. So now I'd like to ask Wayne O'Donnell to start his video and kick off this event with the first presentation from Wayne, Doro Eliza. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you very much, Terence. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all well. I'll share my screen. Okay, can you just tell me, Terence, if you can see the slides?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you. Today's presentation is going to be on the Doro Eliza, which is Doro's 4G digital dispersed alarm unit. So firstly, a bit about the Doro team. We believe that life is for living. We empower seniors to get the most out of every day. We enable independence and ensure peace of mind when it matters the most. So helping seniors is the core of what we do. The Doro group is split between Doro mobile phones and Doro Care, which is where we provide the telecare solutions. We are founded in 1974 in Sweden, and we speak to our colleagues in Sweden quite regularly to learn about best practice for the analog to digital switch. So there's no point reinventing the wheel, as they say. Tech solutions are needed to enable care at home while reducing costs for society. So due to a growing older population, a shortage of care professionals will further increase the need for effective solutions. So for example, costs in Sweden for care for the elderly are expected to increase by 80% in the next 30 years, despite an increased focus on care at home. So time-effective and cost-effective tech products and services are essential. moving to digital products allows new health and social care models with more efficient provision of healthcare and an increased focus on preventative measures, which in the best case scenario prevents injuries and disease from occurring or worsening, while maintaining health and independence and mobility. So, integrated technology solution for tomorrow's services. So the ELISA, so all the existing telecare peripherals that can link to Doro's other digital models can also link to the ELISA. So there's that interoperability there when it comes to linking the fall detectors and the environmental sensors, such as the smoke detectors and temperature extreme sensors, etc. Predictive, proactive and preventative services for the future. So that's what we've based the design for the Doro ELISA. So it raises the bar in technology enabled care. It's a very nice design which uses 4G, and like I mentioned, is compatible with sensors, not only the existing sensors today, but also new sensors that's on the Doro roadmap. So we are in conversations with lifestyle monitoring providers and Internet of Things devices that can be bought on the high street to make them all compatible with the Doro ELISA. So it's quite a nice design. It fits nicely in the home and blends in with other items that the end user already has in the home, and it's got a small surface area, so it can fit on smaller tables and windowsills. And we've dedicated our focus on the sound quality. So we get feedback from service providers saying that it looks very similar to a Sonos speaker. Looking at bird's eye view down on the buttons on the alarm unit. So the integral button is a raised button, and it's red to make sure it's compliant with EN 50134. But the other buttons on the unit, just so it doesn't confuse the service user, it dims the buttons if they can't be used, and it only highlights the buttons when it's possible to use them. So for example, the cancel button, it'll only light up when the service user is actually able to cancel the alarm call. With the ELISA, it's a premium digital unit, so you can connect up to 50 telecare sensors through to the alarm unit, either using the 869 radio protocol, but we've also got the added benefit of other types of connections, such as Bluetooth, low energy, and Zigbee. And those sorts of connections are to do with, like I say, the conversations that we're having with other providers at the moment. It also supports Wi-Fi, so as well as the connection from the alarm unit to the alarm receiving centre, being over the SIM card, it can also be plugged into a router, or you can, rather than it being hardwired into the router, it can also use the client's Wi-Fi if they have broadband. If they don't have broadband, which many telecare service users don't, then it doesn't matter, because the unit has internet access inbuilt, if you like, from the SIM card. Because it's a 4G unit, there's the ability to have video and communication capability. Reliable and safe communication. So this is something that's come up quite a lot from service users about that they're not particularly interested in how the alarm unit connects to the alarm receiving centre, or even service providers sometimes. But that is important. It's vital that the unit connects to the alarm receiving centre reliably. So it doesn't use analog DTMF or STMF tones to communicate. It uses digital, and it uses Scape and also Scape Plus, as some people are calling it, or TS50134-9, or Senelec. It's got a few different names, but basically the Scape connection with encryption. So it's a secure connection from the alarm unit through to the alarm receiving center. It's the very clear and sound speech, so HD sound, and it's possible to connect a hearing loop as well. And the alarm unit is all controlled or programmed over the iCare online portal, which can be accessed either through a mobile phone or laptop or PC. Again, to do with security and reliability, so more for your IT departments, that it uses TLS as well. So it's all around making sure that the connection between the alarm unit and your firewall or your alarm receiving center is secure and it's encrypted. The alarm unit also has a heartbeat functionality, and that's not just specific to the alarm unit, it's also a heartbeat function to all the peripherals linked to the unit. So making sure that the pendant is still working, that the smoke detector is still working. And I'm not talking about low batteries now, because same as every other provider, it sends a low battery alert through to the alarm receiving center. My point is more on if the sensor physically stops working. So it saves service providers having to do that annual maintenance visit to check that the equipment is working. It's letting the technology do that work. So it's a smarter, more efficient way of working. The battery backup in the ELISA is 72 hours. So again, as part of the protocol, it'll still send mains failures and mains restored and those types of alerts through to the alarm receiving center. But it's a longer backup, battery backup in the ELISA of 72 hours. Various connection options. So this is where it is impressive, the actual inside of the alarm unit, where you've got 3.5 jacks, USBs. It's got an inbuilt antenna, but also the possibility to add an external one. And again, this is all to do with making the unit future-proof for other types of sensors that are either not necessarily Doro sensors, but ones on the Internet of Things, on the high street, or from other providers. So it's just making that connection possible. It's important to mention as well the pendant that comes with the alarm unit, or the personal trigger. So Doro's old pendant, for example, used to be white with a big red button in the middle. And the service user would only wear it if the professional went to visit them. So we changed the design of the pendant to make it look nicer, which is important. To move away from that clinical and that stigma look of the equipment, and yeah, that certainly is important and does come into it. So it comes with an easy press included, free of charge for those service users that have issues with dexterity and they can't easily press the pendant. 5 years battery life. Doro recommend a battery called Varta. So customers can basically replace their own battery, and that's not just on the pendant, that's for all the sensors, where you can just replace the battery yourself. So it's just that ongoing, it's supporting customers with that ongoing cost of maintenance and servicing. So in summary, it's a future-proofed digital unit. It's safe, reliable, and powerful. So just to finish on a quote, a nation's greatness is measured by how it treats its weakest members. Thank you very much. I'm open to answer any questions either now or I've included my contact details for you to get in touch after the presentation, but I'll be, like Terence mentioned, I'll be on the call throughout the until the end of the session.
Thank you very much, Wayne.
Thank you.
And as Wayne has just said, Wayne will be around till 1 o'clock today. Presentation will also be on the website. So if you do have any questions, continue to post them and we will forward those to Wayne. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'd like to move on to our second presentation today. And the second presentation will be by Max Stevens from CSL.
Thanks.
And if you could start your presentation, please, Max. So Max will be talking about digital solutions for telecare. Thank you, Max.
Yeah, hopefully this has come up correctly, Terence, yeah?
It has, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Hi, my name is Max Stevens. I'm Key Accounts Manager end-to-end, or IoT, as it is now for CSL, specifically dealing with telecare. Firstly, thank you to UKTelehealthcare for inviting me on to speak today. I'm going to speak about sort of the future as we move from analog to digital, a bit of a background on the switch from analog to digital. Hopefully nothing that surprises anyone. We should all know that it's happening. And then the solutions that CSL have got as we move into digital. So a quick background on CSL for anyone who's not familiar with us. We've been going since 1996, and we deal in what we call critical connectivity. So that's devices like telecare devices where it's important that that signal gets from the device to the monitoring center or the platform, wherever it is that it needs to go immediately. So we don't deal in like smart meters and stuff like that, where if your smart meter reading doesn't go through straight away and it goes through in an hour's time, that's not a problem. We deal with critical sort of life and property solutions. We're partners with all of the major MNOs. The SIM cards that we provide will connect to all networks across Europe. And I guess that one of the sort of key things to note is that we've already been through this digital transformation twice. So firstly in fire and security, which is CSL's sort of background. We started out as a fire and security signalling company in 1996 before moving into telecare in around 2010. That digital transformation in fire and security has already sort of happened. They're going through a second change now, but they did move to mobile and digital around 2006 in the first instance. And we've also been through a digital transformation in telecare or telecare enabled care in the Nordics as well. And we've got over 1 million digital connections across Europe. So yeah, the all IP switch, I'm not going to bore anyone by giving people too much information about what it is, because we already know. The analog telephone lines are all moving to digital, and that obviously poses, I think, difficulties for us in some ways, but also opportunities. But the key things I think to remember is that 2025 is an end date and not start date. We are already seeing exchanges move to stop sell. We're already seeing end users' homes moving to digital, and we're already seeing that the analog protocols.
I think we've lost Max. I think the link has gone down. Just wait.
I can hear you, Terence. Can you hear me?
I can see him.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you as well, Max.
Okay, I'll carry on. So the analog protocols, that's the DTMF and the STMF, are becoming increasingly unreliable, and that's because as part of this analog to digital switch, the bit in the middle is being upgraded. So even if the end user's home hasn't necessarily been switched from analog PSTN, copper PSTN to all IP, that doesn't mean that the route that the signal takes from their property through to the monitoring center, that there hasn't been a change made in there. And so 297 exchanges will be stop sell by April 2022, which is only 6 months away. And that will mean 3 million premises that will be unable to purchase a new analog connection, and that also affects people who switch providers. So if you're with BT at the moment and then Sky come along and they've got a better offer, when you move to Sky, once your exchange is in stop sell, you will only be able to buy the digital service from them. You won't be able to buy the analog service from them. And we believe that from the stop sell notice, that basically starts a 2-year timer until there will be stop service. That's not to say that it won't happen sooner. I think there will be a point where Openreach get to maybe 75% of people on that exchange have been upgraded, and then they move that stop service faster. But I think that 2 years is sort of the backstop, if you like. We've got a handy tool on our website, and as Terence mentioned before, these slides will be shared afterwards, so you don't have to remember that link or anything like that. It will be clickable in the slides that are sent around. But on our website, you're able to put in a postcode and see the local exchanges for that postcode and the date that they will go to stop sell. And that is updated sort of as we get more information from Openreach about the different tranches. So I think everyone knows obviously that we're going from analog to digital. I think it is generally accepted by most people as well that the answer to digital is going to also be mobile. And I guess the things to remember there are that we aren't the first to do it. It was mentioned before, obviously at the start of my presentation, about fire and security, and also about telecare in the Nordics, and Wayne touched on it as well about learning from colleagues in Sweden. Everywhere else where that analog to digital transition has already happened, they've gone through sort of a process of going from telephone lines to broadband with a mobile backup, and then eventually just settling on mobile. I think 95% of all telecare installations now in Sweden are mobile. And we'll maybe come on to sort of reasons why mobile is the right solution. The heartbeat, I think, is massive. Again, CSL's background in fire and security, we call a heartbeat a poll call, but poll calls have been a thing in fire and security for as long as anyone can remember. And it's something that still sort of baffles people when you tell them that we've got, maybe 1.8, almost 2 million people in the UK reliant on telecare, and nobody knows whether their devices work until it comes time to press a button. The heartbeat will give us that knowledge and sort of security, if you like, that the devices out there are working. Ownership of problems. If you're buying a device where you're connected to the broadband, for example, and you have an issue with connectivity, who do you speak to about that issue? Do you end up with the manufacturer saying, well, maybe it's your BT broadband, and BT have just got no idea what telecare even is, and that's once you manage to speak to them. So that ownership of problems of buying the device and the connectivity together from the manufacturer means that any issues with that device, regardless of what the root cause is, essentially just becomes the manufacturer's problem, and it's for them to fix, and that takes that a lot of stress away from service providers. Coverage as well. Coverage is good in the UK. It's maybe not as good as it is in other European countries, but still all of the providers would say 99% population coverage, and if you overlay those on top of each other, you're probably looking closer to 99.5, maybe even 99.9% of the population is covered by at least one mobile network. And the devices are fit for purpose. So one of the big benefits of this switch to digital is that we're no longer trying to send data over analog lines. We're using data paths via mobile IP to send that data. And so these are devices that are fit for purpose, working with the networks in the way that the networks are designed to work. So some of the benefits of digital is, so obviously moving to mobile, we're no longer tied to the phone socket. So we can now move the device to the right place in the property for the end user. So if in the past the telephone line was in the hall, but the end user spends most of their time in the living room, that might not necessarily be the best for audio quality if they're having to shout through from the living room to the hallway. Now we can move that device to the best place for that service user where they spend most of their time, so that when they need to press that button, they're close to the device. We're in a position at the moment where a lot of monitoring centres aren't necessarily ready to take the digital devices. Maybe they don't have Scape enabled on their alarm management software yet, but because the current sort of generation of devices that are available are what we would call digital ready products. So these are digital products that you have a SIM in, will send a heartbeat, but can, as well as being able to do Scape, can also still do the analog tones. That means that we can start to install these digital ready devices or hybrid devices today, knowing that when the monitoring sensor is ready, we can log on to a device management platform and change all of those devices to digital at the switch of a button without having to go back out to site and reinstall new devices. So we can start to reduce the problem today. And I think digital, as we move forward, will give us real benefits to change the way that we work. One of the examples that came from Sweden was around the provisioning of peripherals, and being able to add peripherals to devices remotely meant that peripherals which were sent out to end users could be sent pre-programmed and they could install them themselves. And that meant that service providers no longer had to send somebody to site to provision peripherals. But that local authority or municipality, as they call them in Sweden, didn't stop sending those people to see the service providers, because that might be the only interaction that person has that day. But instead, they went and actually spoke to the person, rather than their time being taken up having to connect a peripheral to a device. Digital will give us more information. So we now have a data connection in the end user's home that can be used, like I said before, for the heartbeat. So we can send that heartbeat through. We know now that the devices work, but we can start to add other services on top as well. So activity monitoring, for example, could be added on through that same data connection. And then we get to sort of a prevention opportunity, where through activity monitoring, maybe we could detect a fall before it happens, stop that person from falling in the first place and having that bad experience, stop them having to go into hospital. And all of that can be done because we've now got a data connection in the home. Digital also gives us the opportunity for true independence. I think one of the things that telecare has been really good for has been allowing people to stay in their own homes and live independently in their own homes. But it's very much been in their own homes. And a lot of people, I think, find that once they've got that sort of safety blanket at home, they maybe become less confident in going out. But by providing devices that can actually leave the home with them as well, that then gives those people that confidence and that safety blanket wherever they are. Another benefit of digital, and another thing that we've done in telecare is the SafeLink device, which people may be familiar with, which solved an issue where in a scheme, if you make a call and then the fire alarm goes off, then the fire alarm wouldn't leave the scheme until the original call was closed down. One of the big benefits of digital is that we can have multiple calls at the same time from schemes. So that could be Mrs. Jones in flat 1 and Mr. Smith in flat 2 have both got an issue and they can speak to the monitoring centre at the same time. But it also means no delay to the fire alarm. So that means that all of those signals can get through as soon as they're triggered. And I'll cover in a bit about the CSL router and what CSL's solution is for digital schemes. So to come on to CSL solutions in the digital world. So we're providing SIM cards for dispersed alarms. We're partnered with the manufacturers. What that means is that from your chosen manufacturer, assuming that they use the CSL SIM, you can buy the device and the connectivity together. That brings a lot of benefits, buying the connectivity from the manufacturer. For example, there's no risk of overage. I'm sure we're all familiar with people who will call 100 minutes a day through to the monitoring centre, but they're sort of the exception rather than the norm. And therefore what we've done is worked with the manufacturer to understand what the average usage is, and therefore the price that people pay is based on that average usage, And because we aggregate that across them all, that means that some will use more and some will use less, but there will be a fixed monthly cost for that connectivity, regardless of how many calls is actually made by an individual end user. Going back to what I mentioned before about ownership of problems, there's a single point of contact. The only person that you need to speak to about issues is the manufacturer, and then it becomes their problem. And I'll come on to in a minute about the IPsec connectivity that we're putting into monitoring centers. But we've also done that with the manufacturers to their device management platforms. And what that means is that any traffic from the device management platform through to the device is all sent through secure tunnels or private network end to end. The SIM cards that we're providing to the manufacturers of digital dispersed alarms are unsteered roaming machine-to-machine SIMs. These are SIM cards that are able to roam permanently in the UK, and they've got no bias towards a particular network. So therefore, it's up to the device when and how they switch network. And then that brings me on to the roaming algorithm. So we have worked with manufacturers to put roaming algorithms into their devices, which will mean that the device roams to the best network. And the best network isn't always the strongest network. So, for example, if you're in a sports stadium and you're trying to connect on to see what the scores are in the different sports stadium, if everyone's connected to the same base station, you might have 100% signal strength, but you're not able to load the page. If your mobile phone was clever enough to be able to connect to a base station that's slightly further away, you would have a weaker signal strength, but because you don't have the congestion of 50,000 other people trying to connect through that same base station, you would actually have a stronger or better connection. The roaming algorithm also uses the heartbeat of the device to mean that it roams before there is an emergency. By testing that network constantly, you can ensure that if there's any issue on the network and the signal can't get through, the device roams at that point. So therefore, when Mrs. Jones presses the button, that roam has already happened, and therefore is as efficient as possible. I mentioned before about schemes and moving to digital schemes. CSL are providing the CSL router as a backup for digital scheme connections. It uses the same end-to-end private network as the SIM cards do, and I'll come on to the infrastructure piece in a moment. But two of the benefits that router has is by connecting into the existing broadband on site, it secures any traffic for the alarm signals from the broadband through CSL and then using the same IPsec as the dispersed alarms through to the monitoring center. And it also provides a 4G backup. So if the broadband were to fail, whether that's, the broadband is down, the service provider's down, or there's a power cut, by using the backup power to the 4G router, you're able to still get that connection from the site through to the monitoring center via 4G. And again, along with the dispersed alarms, we've worked with the manufacturers of scheme equipment to understand the usage sort of profile of schemes, and we're able to provide the CSL router again at a fixed monthly cost to provide sort of maximum uptime at a fixed cost. And then, so speaking of the infrastructure, so all of CSL's SIM cards are provided on a private APN. We've got fixed links with the mobile networks that come through to CSL's core infrastructure. And we then have IPsec VPNs, which is basically a tunnel from CSL's network through to the monitoring centers. And that means that end to end, all of the data that is sent from the SIMs or the routers is delivered via private tunnels from the site through CSL to the monitoring center. One of the key benefits for monitoring centers is that means they don't have to open up any ports on the firewalls to the internet. We found that that's been a real barrier to the switch to digital, has been monitoring center IT departments and not being comfortable with having ports open to the open internet. Whereas by using these tunnels, we're just delivering traffic directly from CSL to the monitoring center without having to open anything up to the open internet. We use a single IPsec for everything that we do. So if we have a connection into the monitoring center, that will allow that monitoring center to monitor dispersed alarms that use CSL SIMs. It will also allow them to use that same IPsec to monitor schemes that come through the CSL router. And we've partnered with some partner platforms as well to deliver traffic where the signal doesn't necessarily go directly from site through to the monitoring center, but maybe goes to a platform that has an algorithm, and then that understands and generates an alarm when necessary through to the monitoring center. Again, we use that same IPsec to route that traffic through to the monitoring center, which means the monitoring center only needs to have one IPsec for everything that they do. Thank you everyone for your time. I think I've got maybe a minute or two left, Julia or Terence. So if anyone's got any questions, then please do feel free to ask.
Thank you very much, Max. At the moment, we don't have any questions from the delegates for you. I'm just making sure in the chat file. So for the moment, thank you, Max.
Thank you very much, Terence.
Max will be around for the end of the session. So if you have any questions, please continue to post them. Could I ask Wayne to come back online, please? We did have a question due to a system problem, missed it. And Anne-Marie, if you are able, and we could switch Anne-Marie's mic on. Thank you.
Morning, Wayne.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good, good. Yeah, I did put my hand up because I wanted to ask, this ELISA looks good, but you know, when you program a unit through the iCare online, and as far as we're aware, it takes 2 minutes to do that thing. Is that still a thing, the 2 minute thing?
So couple of things on that then. So it'll be quicker because it's not just using 2G, it's using 4G as well.
Okay.
Obviously, if the 4G connection isn't good in the area, then it'll revert to 2G. So it'll be the same as the Care IP that you use now. So you still will see the 2 minutes.
Okay.
But yeah, so it all depends on the area really, whether it's better 2G signal or 4G signal. But with the ELISA, you're getting more choice. But also just on the point that you mentioned, which I forgot to say in my presentation, we've made sure that we are using the same portal.
Okay.
The iCare Online, because that was one of my big things that I pushed to make sure that we didn't yet have another portal where a different portal.
Okay. Yeah.
There's too many portals as it is from different providers, so we wanted to make sure it is all within iCare Online, and it is. But in answer to your question, then the programming, the 2 minute programming, can be made quicker if there is 4G signal in the area. If not, then yeah, it'll still be the 2 minutes.
Okay. And all the ELISAs come with their own SIM, yeah?
Yeah, exactly the same.
And you said that they can have other things in it, other peripherals. Do you do a fault detector for that?
So it's exactly the same peripherals that you use already for the Care IP, so they're all interoperable. Okay. And in terms of the SIM card billing as well, it's exactly the same, where you're only billed for the SIM card if the alarm unit is turned on. As soon as the alarm unit is turned off, it just automatically stops being billed.
Great. So can you let me know what the price is when you've got a minute? Write it down for me.
Yeah, of course. I'll give you a call after.
All right, sweetheart. Thanks. Bye. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Hopefully that answers your question, and thank you, Wayne, for coming back on.
Thank you.
So now we'd like to move on to the next presentation. And the next presentation is by Emma West and Rebecca Howe. If I could ask you to turn your videos on, please. Excellent. I can see your presentation.
Hello. Can you see us and hear us?
Yes, and I can see you and hear you.
Hi.
I'll hand over to you.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm Emma Quest. I'm the Transformation Manager here in West Sussex for NRS, who have lots of different tech services across the country.
And I'm Rebecca Howe, one of the technology occupational therapists in the team here.
Okay, so What I'm going to talk to you about today is what we're doing. Hopefully the screen starts to move. What we're doing in West Sussex, and then some of that also translates to some of the things that we're doing across the country as well. So the first thing to start with is what we're commissioned to do in West Sussex. So we're quite a forward-thinking contract. Our commissioners asked us to help be a development partner with them and look at improving services and really utilise innovation and new things that come onto market. So it's a really exciting contract to work on. We also have a lot of work that we're doing with our council and also the NHS about helping our referrers to really start to think technology first. So in all of the pathways, we're looking at how we can embed that thinking. And we're doing that in lots of different ways, utilising all sorts of communications and training and various things. And then also we obviously are a delivery service. We're here to set up and install and maintain all of our tech to help people remain independent. So in our first year of doing the contract, so we started it in May last year, and we delivered some big numbers. So as you can see, 3,129 referrals that came in over that year. It was a strange time to start any contract because of COVID. We did have obviously lots of reluctance, mainly because people didn't want us through their doors. So we had to find other ways of doing that. The people on the screen here, they really are people that work in West Sussex. And it really, to me, shows that we have a good working team from the stores all the way through to when it gets delivered. So we have two ways people can refer to us. We support people with short-term needs. So they could be people coming out of hospital. We do that for 6 weeks. And then we also support people with long-term needs, so they can have the tech for the life that they need it for. We also have a provision of a tech response service. So this is something that's new to West Sussex. I know it's been in various different places around the country, and it's been really successful. As you can see, the main thing on here that I think I'm incredibly proud about is that it's actually resulted in 97 avoided ambulances, which at a time when obviously everyone's really struggling is a really positive thing. And that's because we'll go also and do uplifting for anyone that has no injury. There. So what we've done with our development side of things is we've added some great new tech to our options. We do this in various ways, and I'm going to go through that in a minute of how we got there. But these are just some things that we've actually added on over the year based on the needs of what the council have told us or the NHS have told us, where we're focusing on different things. So, for example, the cradle is something that we, and the robotic cat actually, we got out of talking through in regards to dementia, how we could help with that, and also isolation within COVID. So working with our referrers, our prescribers, our different working groups were able to give us feedback about where the gaps were, what the issues they were finding. And some really interesting things came out of that. For example, COVID, we did a focus group on that, and we all knew, people were feeling isolated. What I had missed is actually what was going to happen after COVID, and there was a big worry about the sort of tsunami of issues that were going to happen that we are now seeing when COVID and isolation ended, and we were trying to get everyone out and about again and feeling confident. And there came our COVID response packs, of which 2 were born. One was home support when someone has COVID, so they can get delivered to their door. People can press, it's actually an own phone that we utilise if they were to need help. What we found with that is that meant that because people knew they could get help, they were a bit more calm, and because they were calmer, their outcomes were a bit better, because they weren't panicking, therefore their breathing wasn't affected so much by the fear. And similarly, then we also have a regaining independence pack, and that really is aimed at anybody who has been in isolation and then has coming back and starting to get out and about and used to walking around again and being part of sort of everyday life and what that means to them. We're doing lots of development processes. You can see here, I won't go on, but we're doing lots of exciting things with virtual reality, with Corantis 360, and looking at how we can utilise things like that in extra care and discharge to assess. I'll move those forward. So this is something that's sort of been designed based on a lot of information from various sources that we've pulled together to really focus on how do we actually get there. We all know there's a huge amount of new innovations all of the time. We've got some really good reps that know how to knock on our door, and it's about how do we focus on what we really want to deliver. And so we've designed this, and it's based on making sure that before we start anything, that there is an identified gap or need, and we have a clear outcome that we want to achieve. Otherwise, we could probably get a bit starstruck by tech and really forget about what it's going to be used for in the end. Following through that, these are things that you'll all see and be very used to, you know, protect, detect, connect, prevent, reduce, delay. These are things that we're looking at the themes of what we can actually do and where does that tech fit into them. And then we've designed a 4 key components test, which I'll talk you through in a minute. And then once we've gone through all of those parts, we then look at the live testing, and then obviously with any good project becomes the implementation and the business as usual. So the 4 key components test, this really has been designed to make sure we are approaching any new tech in the right way. For a long time, it would be a case that you'd see somebody, they tell you what the tech can do, you trust what they're saying, and then you crack on, and then you start to find perhaps a few holes or things that you hadn't found out, or things that they didn't know as well, because you're using things in a different way. So we're trying to approach it differently, and we're doing a check of all things. So we broke those down into 4 parts. So the technology, obviously, does it work? Does it do what it says on the tin? The ethics behind that, and what we really mean by that is, you know, who is supplying this? Would they be able to supply us with 100 as well as the 10 we might originally put in, and how quickly can they get those things to us? Are the resources they're using, is it ethical? Is the data stored in the right places? All of those questions we didn't have to ask, you know, 5 years ago, really 6 years ago, and they're really now so prevalent when we go into the digital world. And then investment. So by that, I don't just mean money, I mean investment of time, I mean also return on investment. So if we are utilising a new bit of tech, what really does that give us? What does that give the council? What does that give the NHS? What's the whole story for the person that's going to be using that at the end of it? And then the people. So who is this for? We might be looking at the need of, say, falls, but actually that bit of kit, that technology, could be utilised in lots of different ways. And to do that, we've got a great team of occupational therapists that really look at that kit, play with it. It's their funnest part of their job, and design what does that look like for users, and then what training would be required both for us internally and also for all the prescribers and referrers that we have, so that we can really unpick some of those pathways and make sure that we are really starting to think technology first and embedded within them. So with all of the digital world and all of the data that we get from monitoring centres and all of these things, we're starting to get a huge amount of data and information. And we've had that as an industry for such a long time and probably haven't used it as well as we should have done. And so many suppliers are really utilising that as a USP or telling us we can do this, but it's about how we really translate that back into when we're talking to the council, to health. And this is what we're starting to do now. So we really are, I won't read it all out to you, but we're trying to make it tell a story. And I think the best way of doing that and showing how we can utilise that is with a case study that Becky's going to go through with you in a minute. Essentially, with the data, when we're looking at it, we get highlighted if someone's called through more than 20 times from a monitoring centre. Also, if they've had a call out from our response team more than 4 times, and that highlights to us to start looking at that person. Essentially, 3 things are going to happen. It's either going to be we've got the wrong tech in, it's not set up properly, something needs to change or adapt for them, or they've got a health change, a need that has now been identified. It could tell us a urinary tract infection has happened that we need to start highlighting and looking at. Or what we're finding most commonly is actually there's a need in support that has changed. So it could be a breakdown with a carer, it could be a need that wasn't there before that has now escalated, and that's something we can then work with the council and really get them to highlight the people before they get to crisis, which is the whole point of doing this. So I will pass you over to Becky, who will go through the case study.
Okay, thanks. It's quite a brief case study, because if I sort of went into everything, all the phone calls and everything that it involves, it would take too long. But just, I suppose I'll just run through the slides. So Paul was referred to us to look at solutions around reducing the risks of accessing the community unsupported. His main risks were that he was getting disorientated when he was going out and about and losing track of time, and obviously he had severe dementia, no medical problems, so he was wandering into people's gardens and using buses, but could usually get home, but not always. Occasionally he'd get lost, and once he had to be driven home by a lady that picked him up. So he'd also leave his front door open, which is quite dangerous at times. So he became very reliant on his care agency. He had carers coming in twice a day to help him with his ADLs, his activities of daily living, and he'd also ring them for chats because he was quite lonely. So what we provided technology-wise was a Novo base unit, Lifeline pendant, some door sensors, and a GPS Oyster help on hand tracker. And I think we spelled Oyster wrong. Sorry about that, Oyster. Yeah, so those things initially were provided, and we'll go through the numbers of calls after that. And that was, like I said, he was referred in June 2020. So by November 2020, 159 total calls were made, being reported by Apello, the receiving centre. 58 accidental calls, probably made by his help on hand, but he wasn't using it properly. 15 social interactions and 40 property exits. So that would have been linked by the door sensor. And then police and emergency with no action, 11 call-outs and 2 police actioned call-outs. So yeah, and the rest being made up with no speech calls and engineer tests. So the BDS response service had been called out 18 times in total by November. And so what does this show? Just the previous slide.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I've got extra notes. Yeah, so obviously it shows that Paul's very lonely, and you know, was calling the wrong service to sort of talk to someone, and probably didn't understand, you know, really what the service was there for, obviously. So okay, I can go on to the next one. Yeah, so what did we do? We discussed with Paul's care manager, completed a joint visit with the NRS OT at the time. So this is a second-hand perspective from me, because the previous OT dealt with this case, and the care technology consultant and Paul's social worker. So what was the change? Well, they changed the settings of his GPS watch, and it was identified that a number of the calls were a result of Paul activating the watch by mistake. And then we had a Canary Care activity monitoring implemented to give Paul's social worker a better idea of what his routines were. And I think from that, they decided that he needed to go and socialise more. So he started to go to day centres and the dementia care service every day, taken by his carers. And unfortunately, then I think COVID hit, so that was stopped. But he had a couple of living carer for a couple of weeks come in, and that, I think, really reduced the number of calls by January and February. So yeah, so what was the outcome? So the outcome of those changes are that the BDS have not seen Paul since January, and this was achieved by a multi-agency approach, including police ambulance, the technology, our service, yeah, and I think the best thing about this case study is that Paul was able to stay at home longer, which is what he wanted. He is now in a care home, a dementia care home, which I think was going to be the outcome ultimately anyway. But yeah, it prolonged that, which was great for him, gave him a chance to be independent when he could. And yeah, so I think that's
brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I think that the key here was it really did make a difference to him for the amount of time he was able to stay out of a care home. Ultimately, he did end up there, but actually it was much longer than it would have been had it not been for that. I'm very mindful of time. I know we've had our flash up, so I'll be quick on this. This is just really showing about the how we're tracking the benefits of the service and how we're really working through with the council. So each referral that we receive from the council and from the NHS, the referrer chooses what benefit is mainly, it's got to be their main one. Obviously, we can all say there's lots of different benefits that service user is going to get from having that tech. And based on that, all the ones that are highlighted or in bold from 1 to 7, these are ones that actually we can have a financial sort of saving, if you like, to the council, and then 8 to 11 are obviously great for the user, but we haven't been able to attach a financial saving. What this is showing is that, you know, month on month, time on time, and as the years go on, there's a great amount of savings that the council are utilising for every pound being spent, which, you know, we all know and have known for a long time, but it's a great model that we're starting to use to really be able to evidence that. Lastly, shameless plug really, we have LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Please follow us, link in with us, come onto our pages. We're actually utilising this a lot for our referrers to be able to get information across to them. We have new requests of ways they want that too, but we're really trying to kind of get into the new world of social media and make sure it's as useful to people as possible. And that's me done.
Thank you very much, Rebecca and Emma. There's a lot of information to go through. That information, as with all the other presentations, will be available on the website. So give you time to digest it and ask questions at a later stage. So we'd like to swiftly move on to the next presentation. And I'd like to invite Steve Gates of BPP Taking Care on.
Right, thank you very much, Terence. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can see both myself and the slides as well. What I'm hoping in the next 15 minutes is that we will look at what I think is the third part of the triangle. So we've heard about technology and digital. We've just heard from NRS and West Sussex about the local authority perspective. And what I'd really like to bring is the customer perspective, the end user, the loved one perspective, so that we make sure that they are a key part in all of our conversations. So just look at a little bit about how we should think about customers, how we can approach them. We've recently done some research with YouGov looking at their fears and their worries. So let's think about that and the way that technology-enabled care can support them. Let's look a little bit. We've just seen from NRS and West Sussex the financial value that a local authority can deliver from technology-enabled care. But equally, let's have a look at the financial value that the loved one, that the service user, puts on that ability to stay in their own home for a number of years longer. So hopefully a really customer-focused review of the world. What makes us believe that there's something that we can hopefully add here is the fact that as an organisation, we have 3 alarm receiving centres in Exeter, Ashburton and Chichester, through which we look after both our local authority, residential care and housing association customers. But we also look after business to consumer, direct, retail, private pay customers as well. And in fact, for us as an organisation, our private pay business is the largest part of our organisation. So it's our biggest focus. So we're active in this market. We are very deliberately technology agnostic. And the reason we are technology agnostic is that we want to get a really clear understanding of the customer and then find the tech solution that is right for them, rather than as a manufacturer with a monitoring center be worried about shifting our own boxes. We will be far rather focused around working with the best partners we can in each of our key market areas. So from a customer point of view, I think really important to say that we need to remember from a consumer point of view that we do have two key customer groups. So interestingly, for the alarm units and wearables that we retail, 2/3 of the people who are either interacting with us online or are phoning us up to purchase a unit are in fact the family members purchasing it on behalf of mum or dad. So classically, these are what we know as the sandwich generation. They are between 50 and 55 and 65. They are looking after their own children and their parents as well simultaneously. And they are often conscious very early on of those changes that their parents are going through around the house. The other third of our purchases come from the loved one themselves. Average age for us is around about 85.6, often triggered by that first fall. I was listening in with our independent living advisors this morning. Lady had fallen twice over the weekend and had realised she herself now needed some extra support so she could continue her active life. So two customer groups that we need to think about. We, as I mentioned, recently did some research, particularly amongst family members, to say when you are thinking about your parents at home, often you may be some distance away. What are the things that worry you about your parents staying safe in their own home? So here were their findings. On average, they were worried about 5 things. So a lot of things that we can address. Interestingly, and I'm not sure we expected this, and it might be a post-COVID issue, number one concern is loneliness of their parents. Number 2 is all about the issues that we've been talking about today, how their parent will raise the alarm in the event of a fall, how they will get up after a fall. And then thirdly, there is this group of things which are all about how they are managing their health, how they're managing their medication, how they're managing their nutrition, their food and their exercise as well. So it's clear, I think, from this perspective that we've got 3 key areas that people are concerned about and need reassurance about in terms of actually supporting their elderly parents living at home. Now, when we ask them about the technology that they would consider in terms of reducing that worry, again, probably not surprisingly, personal alarms, number one solution from a technology-enabled care perspective. This is what by and large people are aware of. They may well have seen their grandparents use something on this basis, but it's really clear that family members see that personal alarm as a real key support to their parents. We've then got that whole series of things about medication reminders, about support and about prevention, virtual GP appointments. So I think when we start to look into this sort of preventive, proactive world, there's a really clear demand and a really clear interest in that type of area from the family members for their parents as well. And then we've got, perhaps a bit lower down, the IoT sensors around what's happening with somebody when they're moving around the house. And interestingly, given that they had loneliness as the #1 worry, some type of robot or things like that to reduce loneliness really still at the moment quite low down the list of technology-enabled care solutions that they would provide. So I think from a technology-enabled care perspective, clearly we are in a good position. So we also talk to loved ones about where the falls occurred, and we can see that the majority of them are occurring in the home. We can see in which rooms they occur as well. And again, you can see that it's predominantly in the bedroom or the lounge, followed by the bathroom. And on average, people are falling in 1.5 rooms in the house. So it gives us a sense of how many rooms we need to monitor if we're going to make sure that somebody is protected in terms of remote cameras or PIR detectors as well. So again, interesting insights in terms of that as a focus. We also asked, what was the family member's biggest concern about falls? And you can see two very clear leaders there. One, that sense of somebody being lying on the floor with no way to get help, that sort of both mental and physical concern that might happen to their loved ones, followed really, really quickly by the injuries that were caused by the fall itself. So both of those key areas. And I think, interestingly, following on really, really quickly after that is a loss of confidence or independence that we know that first or successive falls can actually generate. The start of that cycle of frailty is a genuine concern amongst the family members. So that's some really recent up-to-date research where we're trying to understand the needs of the loved one, the needs of their family. We also did some work with YouGov earlier in the year to really try and have a think about, if technology-enabled care is the solution, what are the barriers to actually people adopting it? And you can see in these reasons there are some design issues about it looking like it's for older people, stigmatizing people. There are some quality issues in terms of how will I know that that service is a good quality, and there are some cost issues attached in there as well. So I think we need to think about all these things as we're designing solutions that will meet customer needs. I think from our perspective as a group, as an industry, really, really positively, our loved ones expect the technology-enabled care that we provide to keep them in their own home for 5 years plus. And in fact, the average expectation for a loved one over 55 is in fact that by using our solutions, they can remain in home for 6.5 more years. And as we saw earlier on through the NRS West Sussex presentation, that's some real benefits in terms of avoiding care home fees as well. So we asked them, we said, what's the value that you get as a loved one being able to stay in your own home, part of your local community, avoiding care home fees? And they were really, really clear that they could place a value on every year that they were at home. And for the over 55s, that average was in fact £12,500 per year that they valued that ability to stay at home in control of their own independence as well. So if you bring that all together if you look at their willingness to pay for technology-enabled care, and people most certainly are willing to pay out of their own pocket. If you look at their expectation that we can help them live in their own home for 6.5 years longer by using the technology-enabled care, and they value each of those years at £12,500, you can see that as a technology-enabled care industry, we can actually deliver them over £80,000 worth of value through the technology-enabled care that we provide, and help them avoid over £200,000 in care home fees as well. So it's really, really clear, if we are able to think about the customer, we have some really positive solutions for them. Finishing off, what are our customers thinking about digital transition? Really key thing that we're all talking about as an industry. And we can tell you what they're thinking about the digital transition, and that is not much, because 90% of customers, 90% of consumers are entirely unaware of what is going to be happening on the digital transition. When you talk to them about that, there's a whole series of concerns that they have, but I think we have a real role as an industry to be talking to customers, to be alerting them, because at the moment they clearly have no idea as to what is going to happen to them from the digital transition. So that's me. That's a perspective that I hope was useful in terms of how we really think about the loved ones as consumers of our service, as customers, how we make sure we do deeply understand their needs and are designing solutions to meet their actual needs rather than what we simply think their needs are, or which are easiest for us to sell to. And I think, again, hopefully you can see, done well, just how powerful that technology-enabled care can add to someone's lives. So thank you hugely, Terence and UKTHC, for your time. That's me, hopefully a different perspective on how to think about customers.
Thank you very much, Steve. If you could hold on there a moment. We have a question from Jerry Allmark. Jerry, would you like to switch your mic on and ask the question?
Morning, Steve. Thank you for that really interesting customer-focused perspective. I thought that was a really good perspective. What's particularly piqued my interest, though, Steve, is your views on the private pay sector. So there are two things I haven't seen on that really. We in the UK have always had pockets of private pay sector. It's not national, it's a bit of a postcode lottery. But on the other hand, is the private pay sector somewhere you're aiming, which is what came across in the presentation, is that the sector that is really looking at prevention, looking forward, looking to bring in technology at an earlier stage so that people are actually benefiting from it in the longer term? I'd just like to drill down a little bit more on your views on that private pay sector.
Yeah, probably two things to say, Jerry. I think from our perspective, the private pay market is indeed booming. I think we've been used to, as a technology-enabled care industry, at being, in a sense, dominated from a local authority perspective. That's still really, really strong, but we're seeing some really, really strong growth in terms of the public's interest in providing these solutions to help their parents stay in their own homes, where they might not be at a level of need that statutory services kick in, but the children, the sandwich generation, want to make sure that mum and dad are safe. Often because they live a long way away, they can't just pop in and check. So I think technology-enabled care has a real solution there. And to your point, I think because we are talking to consumers directly, we do have a genuine chance to be more innovative. We've adopted a program whereby actually we can bring a product to market with a key partner really quite quickly now, on a very resilient basis. But we do that so that we can let customers choose what devices they think is appropriate for their needs, rather than us telling them. So we have a range which goes up to the full connected home range as well. And I think there is an opportunity potentially to be more innovative in that consumer market. Yes.
Thank you. We'll watch with interest how you lead on the private pay sector. It's something I think that's really important looking forward. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. And there's just a comment before you go from Judith. She's saying that it's a very interesting perspective that she's heard in a long time. So thank you again, Steve, for your presentation. So now I'd like to move on to the next presentation. And the next presentation is from Stuart Barclay of YR Home. And if I could ask Stuart to start his video, as I see, and I can see your presentation. So thank you, and I'd like to hand you over to Stuart.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, Steve, very interesting presentation. And Emma and Rebecca, I found that very good. And thanks to all the others. It's really interesting to hear how CSL are doing. And Wayne, it's always lovely to see you talking about Doro. So thank you to everyone. First of all, Terence, the name is Vayar. Vayar means to see in Hebrew. I moved across to Vayar 13 weeks ago. So it's a brief introduction to what Vayar is. A bit about Vayar first and foremost, and a bit about the industry as we know, just to set the scene. Vayar fits in the care home sector as well as just the general care sector, so the assisted living and the healthcare sides. We've obviously been hit hard, and these things are going to continue, as we've seen in haulage and other industries, but staffing is a big issue. New COVID regulations, etc. We can harp on about them till we're blue in the face, but they're reality. We've talked on, and everyone's talked on this, about long lies. I think it was quite interesting, some of the things that Steve mentioned and what his customers are saying and what the family members are saying. They're key elements that we at Vayar consider after a fall. And these are some interesting statistics. But it's also about the hidden falls. So yes, we see the falls, we have an alarm going off, and we've done very well with that over the last 20 years. And we can't fault ourselves for that, but we're more interested also in the hidden falls, the stuff you don't see. So we look at the challenges that we've had, the stigma, again, the accuracy of certain devices, and with the new Internet of Things solutions, how that can improve for the service users and the providers. So what have we done with Vayar? Basically, we've looked at smarter technologies, and this is what we've come up with. It's touchless, it's non-wearable, there's no cameras, there's no privacy issues. It's very easy to install, but what's the technology inside it is really what's important. It is a millimeter wave 4D imaging chip. It's a mouthful in its own right. But again, I reiterate, there is no camera. I'll show some videos and you'll fully understand that, and you'll see very shortly in some slides. Really hassle-free installation. It does allow us to see through certain elements, so beds, stuff like that. So there's no, if you fall, then you'll be found, and cuts down on the number of false alarms, and obviously sees through all lighting conditions. But this is where we started. We started 10 years ago, and it was all about detecting breast cancer, making it less painless, making it inexpensive and very portable, especially around the third world countries, but also about people that can't travel to hospitals for a mammograph, and we can bring the device to you. That's where it all started for Vayar. We then moved into lots of different sectors, so you can see detecting in cars. We now do detecting external to cars, breathing, gate management, tracking of people in buildings for security, imaging with regard to security around industries and theft, etc. So that's just some of the devices. You can see some of the point cloud views there that we work on. So there's no cameras involved whatsoever. But we also found we could do more. Retail, smart homes, you can read it yourself, I'm sure. But we're interested about the healthcare sector. So this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the Via Home. It's a 3-inch device. It can fit surface to the wall. It can sit flush in the wall, depending on the installation that you're doing. But what it's doing is it's scanning the room 10 times per second, and it's giving us a real-time activity of the individual, whether they're in their bed and when they went to bed, when they got out of bed, when they went to the toilet, when they went to the chairs, how long they've sat there, etc. But importantly, it's also going to give you sub-region exit, so a bed exit or a chair exit, so you can time that for at night and at day. Second to that is you're going to have a real-time fall detection, so it will give you straight falls alerts. Again, no cameras, so there's no privacy issues. So this is what we see. Some of you on the presentation have probably seen this before, but this is Yoni in one of our presentation rooms in Israel where the device is manufactured. Yoni is obviously standing, and you can see very clearly in the point cloud view his head, his body mass, and his hips. Yoni puts himself on the floor and he's below the threshold, and an alarm will be raised. But you've got your sub-regions, your room presence, and everything else of your visitors. This is a 50-second video. There's no sound. I will talk over the top of it once I get it switched on. So this is Malcolm. You can see on the dashboard coming in there that he's in the bedroom. He's going to put himself on the bed. The dashboard will change to say he's in bed. The Via device is actually up here on the wall. You can probably see the cable more than the device. Malcolm's going to get himself out of bed now, and he's going to position himself in somewhere where a PIR, something similar, would not pick you up as a fall. So he's putting himself on the floor, just a soft fall, and then we've got a fall alert. And it's going to come through onto a mobile device this time, but we can link to any social alarm, we can link to any warding call, and we can also link to any nurse call system. Or we can use it as a standalone device as well for individuals in their own home. We've also put a device in the bathroom, so Malcolm, the dashboard will show that Malcolm's went into the bathroom. Obviously, had a fall in there, etc., then it would raise a fall from that room also. So what is it made up of? It's made up of the Via Home itself, it's made up of the dashboard. So there's, and in this case, we've got it coming through onto the mobile phone. But again, we can make it speak to any caregiver in any way, shape or form, whether that be an alarm receiving centre, whether that be a care home, as I said, or wardens on site, if there is still such a thing. It's made up, it does need Wi-Fi, so it does need connectivity. That is a challenge. And Wayne, I would be interested to talk to you about that connectivity if we could link to the Doro, because that would be quite interesting. Obviously, you can have your customer cloud, or you can have your on-premise server, which is just a laptop, and that's more a standalone solution. But we've also got the exact same solution here, where it's gathering the data straight across to the cloud, and this is the integrated option. And you can put for the present analog solution, we can put in just a pendant board, but we could also, for the digital solution, add other pendant boards that Wayne and everyone else talked about. So there is a lot of options, and we're looking to integrate into lots of different partners. This is just a slide of the back, so you've got the cloud, and then you've got your, obviously, your connections with transmitters, etc., on the back of there. This is one of a connection we've done to a standard dispersed alarm. Hopefully you should hear the sound.
Hi, today I'm going to show you how Via Home can send a fall alert to a nurse call system or a care hub using a standard transmitter. Here we have Via Home installed on the wall, already connected to the transmitter. Now we'll do a test fall and see how Via sensors automatically detect that I need help and notify the care hub through the transmitter. The device is already on the wall, so it's continuously scanning the room to monitor what's happening in real time.
Pendant activation. Press cancel button to cancel the alarm. Do not worry, contacting assistance.
So you can see there from the installation, the dry contact is a cabled connection, in which case the unit we were using there was a universal transmitter, which was too big to fit into the housing. But 9 times out of 10, the pendant board can be connected. And again, it can be done with a lot of integrated companies.
Hi.
So we're working with councils, we're working with partners in that are actually presenting today as well. A lot of partners we're working with. We're all about evaluation. I really like what Emma said about the 4 key stages, where yes, we want to work with partners similar to that, where we can talk about what the system should do, but go away and try and break it, is my attitude to things. Come away, give us a true evaluation and feedback. If something needs tweaked or changed to meet the actual service users' requirements, and we want to hear that. But importantly, we know it does what it says on the tin. But there's also room for improvement. So listening to our customers is really, really important. So my contact details are available. Obviously, happy to talk to anyone and hear what other people are doing as well, because I think that that's really valuable. And these sessions are fantastic. So thanks to Jerry and his team. And there's my details. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stuart. We have a question from Karen Bradshaw. Karen, if you're on, could you ask your question to Stuart, please? Just wait for a moment to see if mic will be switched on. Yes, I think Karen should be there now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi,
Karen.
Sorry, no, I didn't have a question. I was just making a comment about this presentation. I actually spoke to Stuart earlier this week or end of last week.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. So no question for Stuart this time.
There's someone, Catherine's put a question there.
Thank you, Karen. So yes, there's a question from Catherine. Would you need multiple devices to pick up throughout the day? And what about pets in a home? Stuart.
Absolute classic question. Yes, pets are always an issue. Pets will give you obviously false alarms. It's not pet friendly, but it will monitor a whole room. So depending on the size of the room, it's 25 square meters is what we're talking about from one device. So one device for a bedroom, one device for a living room, etc. So you're looking at a device per room. If you actually want to evaluate the true movement around the house, then it needs to have a location for that. But again, we're not putting price tags on things that it's going to price us out the marketplace completely. These things are probably the price of less than the price of a standard bed or chair sensor or any floor mat or anything else. So it's a proper Internet of Things solution, but it's not being priced stupidly, if that makes sense.
I hope that answers your question, Kathleen. Thank you very much, Stuart. Apologies for getting your company's name wrong. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So to move on now to our final presentation for this event, I'd like to ask George McDowell and Natasha Salway to join me on screen, and they could start their presentation. So they'll be talking about innovation and outcome at Oyster.
Hi, Terence, can you see me?
I can see Natasha. I can't see you yet.
Can't see you, George.
Let's try that one. Is that better?
Yes, I can see you. I can see you.
Thanks, guys. Brilliant.
I'm going to mute myself.
Thank you very much.
And hopefully now you can see the slides as well.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks, Terence, first of all, and thanks to the extended team at UKTelehealthcare. Welcome to all the listeners. We're last, I think, today, hopefully not least. My name's George. I'm the Key Account Manager here at Oyster, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Oyster and also innovation. I've got my colleague Natasha alongside me as well, who I'll pass over to as we go through, and she'll be able to talk to you about some outcomes as well. So just to kick off with a bit of an introduction, I'm hoping that most of you, if not all of you, have at least heard of Oyster and what we do. Well, I'm pleased to say that we are the largest mobile telecare provider in the UK today. And what we do is we provide our partners, who could be local authorities, housing associations, health and social care organisations, whoever it is, with an end-to-end managed service that is all designed to administer safety and security for different types of vulnerable people, okay? And what we do is we strive ourselves to provide a service and a solution that is both person-centred and also outcomes-driven. And today, very proud to say we're supporting more than 20,000 vulnerable independent people, or VIPs, which you'll hear us refer to a lot, from a range of different ages, different use cases and different backgrounds. And our model is designed to ensure that complete cloak of care for the VIP, but also at the same time, providing that extra reassurance for the extended care network. And those are people such as family members, carers, and even health professionals. We're firm believers and hugely passionate about mobile and digital tech. And in fact, it's worth saying that in our 13-year history, we have never actually sent an analog alarm. We do this, we hope we all share that core value of wanting to keep our VIPs both safe and independent in their own homes, helping them to reduce isolation, encouraging them to stay active, and helping them improve or maintain that quality of life for as long as possible. So here at Oyster, I think we understand pretty well the challenges that are presented to us when it comes to the provision of telecare. And we've been particularly lucky, especially over the last 18 months or so, that we've been able to identify and understand some of these issues by regular engagement with both VIPs and also care providers in different forms, focus groups, forums, those kind of things. And what's become extremely apparent, specifically for the VIPs, is that it's crucial to them that they're able to maintain their independence and their mobility and go about their daily living as they can, whether that be walking, exercising, or generally just engaging in the local community. All these things that are proven to help individuals live longer, healthier lives. What was also fed back to us is that we know that they want to feel valued, they want to retain their dignity, and also wash away any unwanted stigma that has often been associated with past provision of telecare. So having modern, attractive, simple to use devices that utilise the latest mobile technologies are absolutely crucial to delivering this. On the contrast, the care providers or individuals that are within that VIP's care network, it's important to them to have access to a wide range of services and solutions that help them manage and support the ever-extending needs of their VIPs. It's absolutely crucial. And this is because no one person is the same. We know that. It's also apparent that there is a big lack or a complete lack of any kind of real data analytics or preventative intelligence from the utilisation of telecare today. So the collecting and the reporting of data needs to be much more streamlined, more easily accessible, so we can begin to aid them in care prioritisation in some cases and encourage them to be able to make data-based decisions when it comes to improving outcomes for their VIPs. So what are we doing at Oyster to help bridge these gaps? Well, when it comes to mobile, which really is our bread and butter, through our range of intelligent care technology, we're able to provide a managed end-to-end service which has identified these factors and can help drive improved outcomes in these different areas. So wherever the VIP is, whether that is at home, whether they're in the garden, whether they're at the shops or on holiday, we have our own range of digital, mobile telecare devices that come in different form factors, let's say. So from wireless standalone home sensors through to wearables, pendants, even small, discreet, waterproof buttons, all equipped with the latest locating technologies. Once the care provision or whoever it is has been able to identify the most appropriate device for that VIP, depending on their requirements or their use case. We can then offer within those products a range of different features and functions, all available to support that individual, ensuring that we're prescribing or procuring a solution that's fit for purpose and meets the exact requirements of that VIP, both now, but as their needs may also develop or change over time. That can be delivered in various ways, all available in our devices. So you've got things such as simple one-touch SOS, all with two-way voice communication. We have automated falls detection built into our devices. We have the ability now to do intelligent geofencing alerts, so alerts such as going too far away from home or not coming home at certain times of the day or night, right through to simple reminder messages that can be for taking medication or simply checking in on a VIP's welfare. For us, truly person-centered means that the Oyster is always evolving. It's always staying applicable to that person should their requirements change, worsen, develop at any time through their journey. Whether it's one of Oyster's mobile solutions or whether it's one of our safe home sensors, all of Oyster's range of devices are managed centrally through the IntelliCare platform. Okay, so IntelliCare is a modern day cloud-based digital care platform that provides different views for relevant audiences. Okay, now that could be a family member or carer simply wanting to view recent alarms, locations for their specific VIP, right through to care providers, even GPs, viewing bespoke data and dashboards, which allows them to observe their VIP's activities, their health data, and to understand those larger trends for further analysis. Whoever the audience is, IntelliCare is able to provide an in-depth reporting, data analytics, and also a preventative and proactive care measure by not only delivering alarms, but also warnings and insights. IntelliCare allows us to monitor activity, usage, ensuring that the VIPs are comfortable using their telecare solution, and that we're in fact not protecting thousands of bedside cabinets out there, which I think we probably are. So should a period of no activity be identified, this again is the type of data that we can feed back into the service and help identify some of those reasons as to why that solution is not being used by the individual. Extremely valuable information, which potentially has lacked in the past. All of this data is not only available via our IntelliCare platform, but also transferable between third parties, so such as the alarm receiving centres or individual members of the care network, guardians as we call them, via text, messaging and emails. That's how we provide a real end-to-end service and keep everybody under that Oyster cloak of care, and therefore giving the VIP that full end-to-end experience. I'm now going to hand over to Natasha, who is going to introduce herself and talk to you a little bit about outcomes. So over to you, Natasha.
Thank you, George. Right, so whilst we've been talking about our innovations in technology at Oyster, which are obviously very important to us, it is also increasingly important to us to discuss the various outcomes that can be achieved with the provision of this mobile technology. So when we're thinking about outcomes, many can be very obvious, but they're not always. We may know why we're providing the equipment for the individual, but there is a larger picture and a bigger care network that maybe we ought to be considering. So for our VIPs, for our vulnerable independent people, we know that by providing people with the technology does provide them with an element of safety. However, with mobile technology that we can provide, it does provide that cloak of care that they can actually take with them anywhere, which enables them to have more choice about the way they live their day-to-day lives. Then we have the informal carers. And with approximately 5 million informal carers in the UK at the moment trying to juggle their working life along with their caring responsibilities, we really ought to be considering outcomes for them. They save our economy about £132 billion per year. So by providing them with a way to be able to locate their active individual loved one, if they need assistance, we can enable them to live their life in a less restricted manner. Now we have our local authority who obviously pay for people to have care home placements, unless you're paying privately, of course. So By providing people with mobile technology, we can help keep people out of care homes for a longer period of time. So that's therefore saving them the cost of a care home placement. However, some people will still inevitably need to go into a care home. And for these people, there is still an outcome that can be achieved for our formal care providers by providing individuals that still want to go out and about into the community with mobile telecare that can enable them to do this without the one-to-one support that they would usually require from a carer within the care setting. And for the NHS, we know that the longer somebody is on the floor after they've had a fall, the more likely it is that they're going to sustain more injuries. So if we can get help to them quickly and efficiently where they are, we can help reduce the amount of hospital admittances. Next slide, please, George.
Sorry.
So I've been in social care arena for about 15 years now, performing various different roles. And within those different roles, tech has always played a major part, but the benefits and outcomes that we've been able to achieve with the mobile tech has changed. So I started off as a social care assistant, and where we always obviously start with the assessment to identify the client's needs. So when you're identifying the client's needs, you need to be considering, what do we want to achieve, what is important to the individual, and what are the options available to us. Now, back then, telecare or technology-enabled care was an add-on at the end. It was, oh, by the way, have a button and box to keep you safe at home. When I became a telecare assessor, turned that on its head and started considering technology-enabled care as the first option, creatively thinking about how tech may be able to improve somebody's quality of life. And I'm pleased to say that practitioners are increasingly starting to think this way. Next slide, please. My next role went on to be a tech project manager, and I was working within a quality and care team, helping care homes to improve their CQC rating using technology as much as possible. And as I mentioned before, by providing a resident with the means to be able to go out safely without one-to-one care can enable the carers to perform their role as effectively as possible, while still being able to respond to the client who may be outside of the property in their time of need. And oh, actually, I do have a great study on this one about a gentleman that really loved to go to the pub on a daily basis. So we've got various case studies. If you want to get in touch to find out more about them, please do. Next slide anyway, George, thanks. So I then joined the commissioning team within the local authority, and obviously the main object of working within commissioning is about sourcing a great service at a competitive price. So within this role, I was actually tasked with creating a benefits realization matrix, which is still used today, which could actually calculate the cost savings and cost avoidances that were made by providing people with technology-enabled care. I then went on to become a service manager. As a manager responsible for a team of assessors and installers, the actual main benefit of Oyster was a bit different. So the mobile technology provided by Oyster was enabling the assessors and installers to be able to go out to see individuals and offer them a product that they were able to set up quickly and efficiently, whilst having the support of the Oyster customer support team, who were always on hand for not only the team, my team and myself, but for the customers or the VIP, should I say, and their loved ones as well at any time, which, although seems obvious, is not actually always available from our providers. So that brings me on to where I am now. And I'm at Oyster Technology now as a tech project manager. This is a new role within Oyster Technology that I'm really excited about. And I'm going to be working with new and existing clients to help them to achieve their intended outcomes by using our mobile technology. We'll be providing bespoke training both on site and virtually, and hopefully working on many different exciting and interesting projects around the country. So we've spoken about innovations and about outcomes in this presentation, and it really is at the forefront of what we want to achieve within Oyster. We want to get from the innovations to the outcomes that are wanted. So instead of just thinking about the capabilities of the technology itself, we want to think about the possibilities it provides to everybody involved in our VIP's care network. So we do have a number of case studies, and they're not just about older people. We do have a number of case studies for various different people of various different ages and various different needs. So please do get in touch to find out about them. Thank you. Over to you, George.
And that's that. Thank you very much. Yeah, just like what Natasha said, if there's anything that anybody wants to find out more about or get in touch, please use the streams on screen. The info act is the best email address to get hold of us on. And yeah, thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk to you today.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, George and Natasha. Thank you to all the presenters today for your presentations, interesting, informative and detailed information, and for keeping to time as well. And now I'd like to hand you over to Jerry Allmark for his closing remarks. Over to you, Jerry.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you found today's sessions interesting and informative. I'm certain I did. I'd just like to really sort of pick up some highlights for me from the day. So first of all, Wayne from Doro, thank you very much for highlighting the advantages that we have from digital. We're talking about sensors that were always on, that could be checked automatically. Very important feature of that digital transformation. And also, you mentioned about your sensors to your devices being manufacturer agnostic. Again, when we talk about interoperability, a very strong message there from a manufacturer. And that really ties into Max's presentation from CSL and talking about mobile data. And really the experience that CSL has, again, across Europe, where they are to some degree ahead of us, and we've got a lot to learn from there. And we can use that learning and that best practice to make our transition as efficient as possible. A really strong message from Max as well around 2025 not being the beginning of the transition, but the end, and how important it is that we keep that in mind in this industry. Also, Max talked about 95% of telecare being mobile solutions going forward. And I think we saw that come through, from Oyster and from Taking Care, where mobile technology is becoming much more a part of supporting people digitally. The presentation from NRS and Emma and Rebecca, important part for me from Emma was to looking at technology first, not putting it in as an afterthought, ensuring that assessors are trained to look at the technology solutions or as part of business as usual. And the other thing that came through quite strongly for me, and it's something that I think is very important to the industry, is the use of data informatics, how on both a group level and an individual level, we can use that very rich data to ensure that we model services around the individual and the groups. And the other important message from NRS, and then this came through again from the Taking Care presentation from Steve, is about the value of keeping people at home for longer. With the switch to digital, it gives us a much, much stronger opportunity to do this. And in Steve's presentation, the value both in terms of quality of life and in terms of cost savings to the individual to stay at home for longer came through as a very strong message for me. Looking at Steve's presentation also to focus on what the end user, the customer wanted. And that wasn't just the customer who is or the service user, but their carers as well, and those purchasing the equipment for them. Looking at it from that perspective and looking at that private pay market growing, does give me the confidence that we will use this technology in the future as we have the growing elderly population and the diminishing workforce, that people are looking to be proactive in private pay in purchasing digital health solutions. Finally, in terms of Stuart's presentation from WAIAR, it's great to see that organisations in the technology industry are using technology that is ready, sensor technology that's already being used in other areas, such as automotive and alarm systems, to bring that across to health. We're not reinventing the wheel, we're using tried and tested technology, and it's really exciting to see a new member come in from Israel and coming into that health market. And finally, from Oyster, we again talked about using the data for improving the outcomes. And I think that is the important message of this data. Data informatics is something that we should really look to taking us forward. And again, a very strong message from Oyster around mobile technology. I think our cared for population wants to be mobile, wants to be able to travel, wants to be able to be independent for longer. And I think from today's presentations, certainly that came through very strongly. I'd like to highlight our next events. So we'll have two events in November, on the 23rd and 30th of November. What we'll be looking to do is to actually follow up on our previous events. So we will be updating you on the analog to digital transformation, because that came through as something that our delegates were very keen to follow up on. And we had a very interesting Falls panel that was chaired by Phil Bridges from Oyster at our last event. And there are a number of areas around Falls and data informatics that we wanted to follow up from that. And the third area that's come through as something that's important to our delegates is looking at how we work with the emergency services, so police, ambulance, fire brigade, etc. Going forward, particularly something important to look at post-COVID and post-lockdown, because what we really need to do is to be able to look at how we can support each other through the emergency services and the digital health industry as well. So we really look forward to those events. There'll be more details coming out shortly. So finally, I'd just like to say, we have, since last August, been running these digital events, which have become, I think, more and more interesting, more and more successful, and much more interactive, which has been great. And into the future, I don't see us changing that, and we will continue to do that. But I still appreciate the fact that one of the big USPs of what we provided was the face-to-face events. So what we would like to do is to have, certainly in 2022, at least one major face-to-face event. And we're currently looking at some venues for early March, and we'll be letting you know once those plans are developed. So it'll be great to get the suppliers back in a room, our providers and other delegates face-to-face with them, so we can actually look at how we go forward as well. So lots happening in the future. I hope, as I said, you found these sessions useful. We look forward to seeing you again in November. If there's anything more information you need from us, all our details are on the website. If there are any particular subjects you want us to cover, you can get that information, get us that information as well. As Terence said at the beginning, the recordings from the event will be available on the website from the end of the week, and so will the presentations as well. If you need to contact any of the presenters and have any problems doing that, please let us know, and we'll ensure that the presenters will be able to contact you directly. I hope you have a good afternoon, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you very much.